My name is Carol Thompson, I'm 67 years old, and my own son and daughter-in-law left me stranded at the airport after life-saving heart surgery. Before I tell you how my daughter-in-law's career went up in flames in front of her own CEO because of it, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. To understand the look of pure, unadulterated shock on her face, you have to picture this. The heart of the Rockies Charity Gala. Crystal chandeliers dripping light onto a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. The air hummed with the quiet clinking of champagne flutes and the murmur of Denver's elite. And there I was, in the middle of it all, feeling more alive than I had in 20 years. The sapphire silk gown I wore wasn't just a dress. It felt like armor, shimmering with a confidence I thought I'd lost forever. Dr. Arthur Finch stood beside me, his presence a quiet, solid reassurance. He wasn't just a world-renowned cardiologist. He was the man who had shown me more kindness in 3 weeks than my own family had in 3 years. And then I saw them making their way through the crowd, like sharks sensing blood in the water. My son Mark, looking uncomfortable in his rented tuxedo, and his wife, my daughter-in-law, Jessica. She was in her element, a piranha in a $1,000 dress, her smile wide and predatory. Her eyes weren't on me, of course. They were locked on the man standing beside me. "Mother," she said, her voice dripping with fake surprise. "What a surprise to see you here." "And Dr. Finch," she practically purred, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Such an honor. I'm Jessica Thompson with Biogen Corporation. I've been trying to get a meeting with you for months." I saw the flicker of calculation in her eyes. This wasn't a family greeting. It was an ambush. She was using me, her own mother-in-law who she'd left helpless at an airport, as a stepping stone for the promotion she'd been gunning for. My blood ran cold. But Arthur was smoother than she could ever be. He took her hand briefly, a politician's handshake, and let go. "Mrs. Thompson," Arthur corrected her. His voice perfectly polite but edged with steel. The formal use of her last name was a subtle, brutal dismissal. "I make it a policy not to discuss business at charitable events. I'm sure you understand." He paused, letting the silence hang for a beat too long. "Furthermore, I'm not here with family. I'm here with my date, Carol." Date. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Jessica's smile froze, cracking at the edges. Her eyes darted from Arthur to me, then back again, the gears in her manipulative mind grinding to a halt. Mark just stared at me, his mouth slightly agape, as if he'd never seen me before. As if on cue, a woman with a chic silver bob and a dazzling smile swept over to our group. "Arthur, darling," she exclaimed, kissing his cheek. "And you must be Carol. He has told me so much about you." She turned to me, her eyes warm and genuine. "I'm Eleanor Vance, the gala chair. It's a pleasure to finally meet the woman who managed to drag this workaholic out of his office." I felt a genuine smile touch my lips for the first time. The gala chair. A friend of Arthur's. She was publicly validating me, cementing my place at his side, and unknowingly twisting the knife in Jessica's ambition. This was my moment. The moment I had been rehearsing in my mind for weeks. I turned my full attention to my daughter-in-law, whose perfectly applied mask of confidence was crumbling. "Jessica," I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the small space between us, clear as a bell. "Perhaps you should respect the doctor's wishes. My personal life is not a business opportunity for you to leverage for a better salary." The shot landed. I saw it in the tightening of her jaw, the slight tremor in her hand. For years I had swallowed my feelings, made myself small to keep the peace. I had given them my time, my savings for their house down payment, my unwavering support for their careers and their children, never asking for anything in return. I had financed their comfort at the expense of my own security, and my reward was to be abandoned when I was at my most vulnerable. Not anymore. And that's when I saw it. Over Jessica's shoulder, a cameraman from the local news station was panning across the room, capturing footage of the city's most powerful figures. His lens swung towards us, the small red recording light glowing like a malevolent eye. It paused, zooming in, right as the blood drained from Jessica's face. The humiliation, the professional rejection, the social embarrassment, it was all happening on camera. A vicious, triumphant smile began to spread across my face. I opened my mouth to speak, to deliver the final crushing blow right there on camera for the whole city of Denver to see, And I said, to truly understand how we arrived at that glittering, weaponized ballroom, you have to rewind the clock 3 weeks. You have to travel back with me to the cold, sterile, and profoundly lonely silence of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. My name is Carol Thompson, and I was sitting alone on a hard, unforgiving plastic chair, my world feeling as gray and unforgiving as the polished concrete floor. Around me, life was a vibrant, chaotic dance. Families were laughing, lovers were kissing, children were squealing with the joy of reunion. Right next to me, a daughter who looked to be in her 40s threw her arms around her elderly mother, burying her face in her shoulder. "I was so worried, Mom," she cried. "I'm so glad you're home safe." The sight of it, so simple and so pure, was like a knife twisting in my newly stitched together chest. Hours earlier, I had been a patient, a collection of symptoms and charts in a hospital bed. I had undergone an experimental coronary artery bypass surgery, a procedure so new the consent forms were practically novels listing all the terrifying ways I could die. The doctors called it a success, a miracle of modern medicine. But as I sat there utterly alone, it didn't feel like a miracle. It felt like I had survived one battle just to be thrown into another. I'd lied to my children. I told Mark and Jessica it was just a minor procedure, a routine cleanup to spare them the anxiety. That's the lifelong job of a mother, isn't it? You become a sponge for fear, absorbing all the worry so your children can live their lives unburdened. For 3 agonizing weeks, I had been the one staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., listening to the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor, wondering if each beat would be my last. I was the one who signed the waivers, my hand shaking, acknowledging that I might leave my grandchildren without a grandmother. I was the one who woke up to a searing, blinding pain, a fire in my chest so intense I couldn't breathe, with no familiar hand to squeeze, no loving face to reassure me. And now, after all that, the only thing I wanted in the entire world was to go home. To my own bed. To my own quiet house. My fingers, still feeling clumsy and disconnected from the cocktail of post-op medications, trembled as I pulled out my phone. The screen felt impossibly bright. I opened our family group chat, a digital space that was once filled with pictures of the kids and silly jokes, but had lately become mostly a log of their busy schedules. I typed out the message, reading it 3 times before hitting send. Flight landed safely. I'm at Terminal 3, Gate K12. Landing at 2 p.m. in Denver. Can anyone get me? I watched the screen, my heart, my actual physical surgically repaired heart, pounding a frantic nervous rhythm against my ribs. I saw the 3 little dots appear under Jessica's name. She was typing. A wave of foolish, desperate relief washed over me. Of course they'd come. I was their mother. Then the message popped onto the screen. A casual, brutal little blue bubble. "We're swamped today, Carol. Get a Lyft." Carol. She had called me Carol. Not Mom, not even Carol Mom, the name my grandchildren used. Just Carol. As if I were a distant acquaintance, an inconvenience in her very important day. The word swamped felt like a physical blow. I thought of the endless days and nights I had watched Chloe and Tyler, my precious grandchildren, so Jessica could attend another networking event, another late-night meeting for the big promotion she was chasing at Biogen. I had poured $75,000, a significant portion of my late husband Thomas's inheritance, the money that was supposed to be my financial cushion in my old age, into the down payment on their sprawling, beautiful house. I had done it without a second thought because that's what family does. Before I could even process the sting, another message appeared. It was from Mark. My son. My only child, the boy I had raised on my own after Thomas passed. "Mom, you never give us enough notice." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. A reprimand. I had just survived having my chest sawed open, my heart stopped in my body, and my son was scolding me for my poor organizational skills. The sheer breathtaking unfairness of it all made me feel dizzy. I wanted to scream. I wanted to type out the gory details of the surgery, to tell them about the fear that tasted like metal in my mouth, about the nights I lay awake convinced I was dying. But I didn't. What would be the point? They were speaking a language I no longer understood, a language of schedules and obligations and transactions. My new language was one of fragile heartbeats and precious, numbered days. So I did what I had always done. I swallowed the pain. I made myself smaller. My fingers typed the 2 words that had defined my role in their lives for years. No problem. I even added a little smiley face emoji. A final, pathetic flourish of my own erasure. As I hit send, the cheerful little icon mocking my own desolation. Something deep inside me, something that had been cracking and fraying for years, finally snapped. It wasn't just my heart that was broken anymore. It was my spirit. In that moment of complete and utter abandonment, I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over a name I had no right to bother. And in a final act of desperation, I tapped the screen, sending a message to a near stranger that would ultimately detonate the life I had so carefully built. The name in my contacts list was Dr. Arthur Finch. It felt almost scandalous to have his personal number, a courtesy he'd extended at the end of our initial consultation in Denver. He was the one who had looked at my scans with a grave expression, the one who had gently but firmly explained that my condition required a level of surgical expertise found only in a handful of hospitals in the country. He had referred me to the team in Chicago. At the end of that appointment, as I was gathering my things, my mind reeling from the diagnosis, he had pressed his personal card into my hand. "Carol," he'd said, his kind eyes meeting mine. "This is a frightening road you're about to travel. If you need anything, even just a friendly ear, don't hesitate to call." I mean that. I dismissed it as the professional kindness of a good doctor, a comforting but empty platitude. I never dreamed I would actually use it. Even now, sitting stranded and humiliated, my lifelong instinct screamed at me, "Don't be a burden." The thought of asking him for a ride was mortifying. It was my family's responsibility, not his, so I didn't ask for help. But the need to connect, to have just one person in the world acknowledge that I had survived, was a primal aching need. I just wanted someone to know I'd made it back. My fingers, shaking, typed out the message. It was carefully worded to be an announcement, not a request. "Dr. Finch, this is Carol Thompson. Just wanted to let you know I landed safely in Denver. The surgery was a success. Thank you again for your initial advice and for referring me to such a wonderful team." I hit send and a wave of instant regret washed over me. I felt foolish, pathetic. He was a busy, important man. Why was I bothering him with my personal updates? I fully expected to hear nothing back, or perhaps a polite, automated reply from an assistant hours later. My phone buzzed in my hand less than a minute later. I flinched, startled. It was him. "Carol, that is the best news I have heard all day. I am so relieved. But you shouldn't be at the airport alone. That is absolutely unacceptable after what you've just been through." I read the message again and then a third time. Unacceptable. He, a near stranger, found my situation unacceptable. The validation in that single word was so powerful, so unexpected, that a hot tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. He saw the injustice of it. He saw me. Before I could even think of how to reply, another message appeared. "I just finished my rounds at St. Joseph's Hospital, which is very close today. It would be irresponsible and frankly dangerous for you to be wrestling with luggage and trying to navigate ride-sharing services right now. My driver, Thomas, is already on his way to your terminal. Please don't argue. Doctor's orders." I was completely and utterly floored. I couldn't even process the generosity. A driver? He was sending a driver for me? The kindness was so overwhelming compared to the casual cruelty of my own children that it felt like a physical shock. Doctor's orders. There was a gentle, firm authority in his words that made it impossible to refuse. Felt nice. To be taken care of. After decades of being the caregiver, it was a feeling I had forgotten existed. I texted him my exact location at the arrival's curb, my mind still reeling. True to his word, no more than 15 minutes later, a gleaming black Lincoln Navigator pulled silently to a stop in front of me. The back window glided down, and a man in a crisp suit with a kind, weathered face and a chauffeur's cap smiled at me. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Thomas. Dr. Finch sent me to ensure you get home safely." His voice was calm and respectful. He got out, came around, and took my small rolling carry-on from my hand as if it were a priceless artifact. "Allow me, madam." He held the heavy door open for me, and I sank into the supple leather seat. The door closed with a quiet, satisfying thud, shutting out the noise and chaos of the airport. The interior smelled of clean leather and quiet luxury. It was a sanctuary. As we pulled smoothly into the flow of traffic, my phone buzzed one more time. It was a text from an unknown number. It contained a picture of a beautiful, healthy-looking meal. Perfectly grilled salmon, bright green asparagus, and wild rice. Below the picture, the message read, "Good evening, Mrs. Thompson. Your first dinner from Gourmet Crate has been scheduled for delivery at 6 p.m. A week's worth of heart-healthy meals are on their way. Compliments of Dr. Finch. Rest well and focus on your recovery." That was it. That's what broke me. I leaned my head against the cool glass of the window and wept. I cried for the cruelty of my children. I cried for the loneliness I had carried for so many years. But mostly, I cried out of a sense of profound, soul-shaking gratitude for the kindness of a man who barely knew me. This man, in the space of half an hour, had shown me more thoughtful, practical care than my own family had in years. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that this quiet, magnificent act of human decency was about to unleash an absolute firestorm upon the carefully curated lives of my son and daughter-in-law. The next afternoon, a gentle knock on my door startled me. I opened it to find Arthur Finch standing on my porch, holding not a doctor's chart, but a cheerful bouquet of sunflowers. He wasn't in his formal suit or sterile white coat, just a simple navy blue collared shirt and gray slacks. He looked less like a medical icon and more like a kind, handsome neighbor stopping by to say hello. For a moment I was so flustered I forgot how to speak. "I hope this isn't an intrusion, Carol," he said, and the sound of my first name from him felt both intimate and entirely natural. His smile was genuine, reaching all the way to his crinkling blue eyes. "I was in the neighborhood visiting another patient and I wanted to see with my own eyes that you were doing all right." "Dr. Finch? Arthur, you didn't have to do that," I stammered, my hand flying self-consciously to my hair. "The meals, the ride, it was too much." "Nonsense," he said, stepping inside as I held the door open. "It was the least I could do. Now tell me how you're really feeling." We sat in my living room, the one that had echoed with silence since my husband Thomas passed away nearly 2 decades ago. But with Arthur's warm, calm presence, the room felt different. It felt full. He didn't just ask perfunctory questions. He asked about my pain levels, my specific medications, my energy. He listened with an intensity that was both professional and deeply personal, making me feel as if my well-being was the most important thing in the world. He told me gently that he was a widower. His wife Eleanor had passed away 5 years ago after a long, difficult battle with cancer. An unspoken understanding passed between us, the quiet camaraderie of 2 people who had navigated the lonely landscape of loss. We talked for over an hour, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt like more than just a mother or a grandmother. I felt like a person. As he prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Carol, I have a somewhat unusual request," he began, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Your story, your resilience in the face of this daunting surgery. It's truly incredible. I maintain a professional page on LinkedIn. It's a space where I connect with colleagues and share medical news, but also occasionally, stories that I believe can inspire others in the healthcare field. With your permission, of course, I'd love to post a brief note about your courageous journey. Nothing private or too personal, naturally. Just a message of hope and strength." I was genuinely touched. The idea that my struggle could inspire anyone, let alone other doctors, was a foreign concept. "Of course, Arthur," I said, my voice a little thick. "I would be honored." He smiled, a wonderful warm smile. He took out his phone and asked if we could take a simple photo right there on my porch, with the sunflowers I put in a vase on the little table between us. It was a sweet, unassuming picture of 2 people smiling on a sunny afternoon. I had absolutely no idea that this innocent photograph was about to become an incendiary device. He posted it that evening. I saw it when he tagged my dormant LinkedIn profile. The caption was heartfelt and professional. "Honored to have consulted with my patient and new friend, the remarkably resilient Carol Thompson. Her journey through a pioneering cardiac procedure is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. A true inspiration to all of us in the medical community." I was at home, propped up on the couch with a book, when my phone started vibrating on the end table. Then it buzzed again. And again. It didn't stop. It was a relentless, frantic symphony of dings and buzzes. I picked it up, completely bewildered. The screen was a cascade of notifications. 48 missed calls. 32 text messages. My heart hammered against my ribs. Something must have happened to the kids. I scrolled with trembling fingers. They were all from Mark and Jessica. My confusion quickly morphed into a cold, hard knot of disbelief in the pit of my stomach as I read the messages. Jessica. Mom, why is Dr. Arthur Finch, the Arthur Finch, calling you his friend on LinkedIn? Call me now. Mark. Mom, pick up the phone. This is a very big deal. Jessica. Carol, I have been trying to get a meeting with that man for a year for the Biogen cardiovascular drug promotion. What did you do? How do you know him like this? The raw, naked ambition in her words was nauseating. The desperation was palpable. Not a single text, not one out of the dozens asked, Mom, are you feeling okay? Not one said, glad you're home safe. It was all about him. All about the connection. All about what I could do for her. Just then my doorbell rang. A series of sharp, insistent jabs. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I knew exactly who it was. I pulled myself up, my body aching, and walked to the door. I opened it to find them standing there, breathless, still in their expensive work clothes, their faces a carefully composed mask of manufactured concern. Mom! Mark exclaimed, brushing past me into the house. We were so worried. We've been calling and calling. I was resting, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You know, recovering from major surgery. Jessica's sharp eyes darted around my living room, as if she expected to find Dr. Finch hiding behind a curtain. Mother, she began, her voice a sickly sweet melody of faux concern. Why on earth didn't you tell us you were such good friends with Dr. Finch? The head of research and development at my company saw his post and sent it to the entire executive team. Everyone is talking. There it was. The reason for the frantic calls, for this breathless visit. Not my health, not my safety, but my sudden shocking social capital. For 15 years I had been the reliable, invisible background character in their lives. Now, because of a single photo, I had suddenly become the most interesting, valuable person they knew. I looked my daughter-in-law dead in the eye, and a strange, unfamiliar power settled over me. The weak, accommodating woman who had cried in the airport was gone. In her place was someone else, someone I was just beginning to meet. And she was done being quiet. Funny, isn't it? I said, my voice as smooth and cool as glass. How a single photograph can make a person so much more visible to the people who are supposed to see them all along. The fake smile on her face faltered. What I said next made it vanish completely. I didn't tell you about my friendship with Arthur, I said, savoring the way her eyes widened at my use of his first name. Because my personal relationships are not assets for your corporate portfolio, Jessica. They are not commodities for you to leverage for a bigger salary or a corner office. The silence that fell in my small living room was heavy and absolute. Jessica stared at me, her perfectly lipsticked mouth slightly agape. The mask was gone. In its place was raw, unfiltered shock. Mark, my son, just shifted his weight from one foot to the other. His gaze fixed on a spot on my carpet, the picture of a man caught in a battle he was not equipped to fight. Mom, that's not fair, he finally stammered, his voice weak. We were just surprised. Concerned. Concerned? I let out a short, sharp laugh that held no humor. It was the sound of a spring that had been coiled too tightly for too long. Were you concerned when I was lying in a hospital bed in Chicago for 3 weeks? I don't recall a single visit. Were you concerned when I texted you, asking for a simple ride home from the airport? Or were you just too... What was the word you used, Jessica? Ah yes. Swamped. The shame that washed over my son's face was profound. He had the grace to look away, his ears turning a deep shade of red. But Jessica was not one to be shamed. She was a fighter, a corporate predator. She regrouped in an instant. She smoothed down the front of her expensive silk blouse, a gesture of re-armoring herself, and adopted a tone of patient, condescending reason, as if explaining a complex business strategy to a slow-witted intern. Carol, she said, the shift back to my first name a deliberate power play. Let's be realistic here. You have to understand the bigger picture. Dr. Finch's public endorsement of our new cardiovascular drug, Cardiovance, could be a multi-million-dollar game-changer for Biogen. This isn't just about my promotion, though that's certainly part of it. This is about the company's stock value. It affects our family's entire financial security. Mark's potential partnership at his law firm, which handles Biogen's patents, the kids' college funds. It is all interconnected. The mention of the college funds was a calculated, vicious blow, and we both knew it. I had started those investment accounts for Chloe and Tyler with the last of the life insurance money after Thomas died. It was the nest egg I was supposed to live on, but I had given it to them to secure my grandchildren's future. And now she was using that sacrifice as leverage against me. So my friendship, I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. My private life is now just another line item in your 5-year financial plan? Another resource to be mined and exploited until it's worthless. That is a very dramatic and unfair way of putting it, she scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. I am simply being a practical, forward-thinking professional. All I am asking for as your family is an introduction. A warm handoff. A 5-minute phone call where you tell him how wonderful Biogen is. Frankly, after everything we do for you, I think you owe us that much. Everything they do for me. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of that statement was like a physical jolt. I thought of the countless holidays I had hosted and cooked for, the family vacations I had financed, the emergency loans I had given them when their spending outpaced their salaries. I thought of the lonely nights, the canceled plans, the life I had put on hold to be their ever-present, ever-reliable support system. No. The word was small, but it landed in the center of the room like a grenade. It was a word I had not said to them, not really in 15 years. Jessica blinked. What did you say? I said no. I repeated, feeling a surge of power that was utterly intoxicating. I do not owe you anything. The Bank of Carol, the nanny service of Carol, the 24/7 support hotline of Carol, is officially and permanently closed. Mark looked horrified, as if I had just announced I was joining the circus. Mom, what are you talking about? What's gotten into you? What's gotten into me is a new heart valve and a new perspective, Mark, I said, turning to face my son directly. I am done. I am done being your unpaid assistant, your emergency contact, and your emotional punching bag. From this moment forward, my time, my resources, my friendships, and my life are my own. Just then, as if summoned by some cosmic director, my phone chimed with a text message. I glanced down at the screen. It was Arthur. Thinking of you this evening. I happen to have an extra ticket to the Heart of the Rockies charity gala next Saturday. It's the biggest medical fundraising event of the year. Black tie. Would you do me the honor of being my guest? A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. I didn't try to hide it. I let them see it. I let them see the flicker of a new life, of a future that did not revolve around their needs. Jessica's sharp, predatory eyes darted to my phone screen, trying to read the message. I looked up at her, my smile widening. As a matter of fact, I said, feeling a delicious flutter of anticipation. I'm afraid I have plans next Saturday evening. As they stood there, momentarily stunned into silence, I knew this was not an ending. It was a declaration of war. I had drawn a line in the sand, and I knew a woman like Jessica would not just step over it. She would try to burn it and me to the ground. And I was right. What she did next was so cruel, so premeditated and vile. It made leaving me for dead at the airport look like a simple act of kindness. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Jessica. The change in her tone was remarkable. It was dripping with a sweet, syrupy apology that immediately set my internal alarms blaring. Mom, she cooed, the word mom now being used as a strategic tool. I have been doing nothing but thinking about our conversation, and I am just so terribly sorry. I was stressed from work, I was short-sighted, and I was completely out of line. You were right to be angry. Please, can you forgive me? Let me make it up to you. Let me take you to lunch, just us girls. We can go to that little Italian place you love downtown, Palma's. My treat, of course. Every instinct I had screamed that it was a trap. But there is a small, stubborn, and often foolish part of a mother's heart that never stops hoping for the best from her children. It's the part that remembers the little boy who used to hold your hand, not the man who scolds you for bad planning. Against my better judgment, I relented. All right, Jessica. Lunch would be nice. When I arrived at Palma's, my heart sank. Jessica wasn't alone. A sharply dressed woman with cold eyes and a predatory smile was sitting with her. Mom, this is my colleague from Biogen, Brenda, Jessica said with a blindingly bright smile. Brenda is on the cardiovance project with me, and she was just so fascinated to hear about your incredible surgical journey. I hope you don't mind her joining us. I did mind. I minded very much. This wasn't a reconciliation lunch. It was a business meeting. An ambush. But I was already there, the hostess was seating me, and making a scene was not my style. I pasted on a polite smile and sat down, my stomach churning with a sense of dread. The lunch was one of the most uncomfortable hours of my life. It was a masterclass in manipulation. A relentless interrogation disguised as friendly, feminine chatter. They showered me with compliments about how wonderful I looked, how brave I was. Then, the questions started, expertly woven into the conversation. So the experimental omniflow valve they used, Brenda began, leaning forward with an unnerving intensity. Was it the third-generation polymer blend or the newer carbon fiber composite? The early data on the polymer has been a bit inconsistent. And Dr. Finch, Jessica chimed in, swirling the wine in her glass. He must have been thrilled with the outcome. Did he mention any of his off-the-record thoughts on its long-term efficacy during your private consultations? He's famously tight-lipped, but with you being his friend. They were pumping me for proprietary medical information and insider opinions. They were using my favorite pasta dish as bait to get me to betray Arthur's confidence. I felt sick. I gave them vague, non-committal answers, pleading post-op fatigue and a fuzzy memory. I pushed my food around my plate, my appetite gone. Feeling like a fool for having fallen for Jessica's transparent ploy. The next day my world fell apart. Arthur called me. The usual warmth and gentle humor in his voice were gone. In their place was a grave, strained seriousness that made my blood run cold. Carol, he said, and my name sounded like a warning. I've just received something deeply disturbing. I need to ask you about a lunch you had yesterday. How? How did you know about that? I stammered. Because I am looking at an anonymous email that was sent to the head of the medical ethics board at my hospital. It was also CC'd to the CEO of a rival pharmaceutical company, and to a reporter at the Denver Post known for his takedown pieces, he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. Attached to the email was an audio file, Carol. A recording. Of you. The air left my lungs in a whoosh. I had to grip the edge of the counter to keep from falling. The lunch. The questions. Brenda wasn't a colleague. She was Jessica's witness, her accomplice. My own daughter-in-law had secretly recorded me. They made it sound. Arthur's voice was strained. Carol, they took snippets of our conversations, your answers from that lunch. They edited them together masterfully. They've created a narrative where it sounds like you are complaining that I was professionally negligent, that I shared confidential clinical trial data with you as a patient, and that I was leveraging my position as your doctor to pursue an inappropriate romantic relationship while you were in a vulnerable state. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The betrayal was so absolute, so monstrous it was physically suffocating. This was not just an attack on Arthur. It was an attack on me. She had taken my personal medical journey, my body, my voice, my vulnerability, and twisted it into a weapon. This was a scorched earth strategy. If she couldn't use my connection to Arthur for her own gain, she would destroy it. She would ruin his impeccable career, his life's work, and in the process she would annihilate me, painting me as a confused, bitter old woman who was either a willing participant or a pathetic victim. It was a checkmate move, orchestrated by a heartless sociopath. Carol, listen to me. Arthur's voice was sharp, pulling me back from the abyss of shock. I need you to listen very carefully. I do not believe one word of this. I know you. But this is incredibly serious. An accusation like this sent to these specific people will automatically trigger a formal public investigation. My lawyer is already calling me. They are trying to ruin my life's work, my reputation, my everything. I sank into a kitchen chair, the phone feeling like a lead weight in my hand. Jessica hadn't just drawn a line in the sand. She had planted a landmine and was trying to force me to step on it. For a terrifying moment I felt the old despair creep back in, the familiar, cowardly urge to retreat, to make myself small, to just give up and let her win. But then I heard the quiet fury in Arthur's voice. A fury not for himself, but for what had been done to me. And something new, something hot and powerful, sparked to life inside my chest. It was not sadness. It was rage. A cold, clear, and utterly clarifying rage. Jessica had made a critical, fatal error. She assumed I was still the same weak, accommodating, invisible woman she had been walking all over for 15 years. She had no idea who I was becoming. "Arthur," I said, my voice shaking but resolute, the words tasting like iron in my mouth. "She recorded me. And I think I know exactly how we are going to make her regret it for the rest of her miserable life." That evening Arthur came over. My small cozy house felt like a command center. We sat at my kitchen table, the bouquet of sunflowers from his first visit still bright in a vase, a stark contrast to the grim reality of our conversation. There was no panic in his eyes, only a sharp strategic focus that I found both calming and incredibly attractive. He was a surgeon, I realized. He thrived under pressure. "She gave us the weapon, Carol," he said, his fingers steepled in front of him, his blue eyes intense. "A secret recording is a double-edged sword. My lawyer confirmed it this afternoon. In the state of Colorado, it is a felony to record a private conversation without the consent of at least one party involved. Jessica might think she's covered because she was a party to the conversation, but her clear intent was malicious, to use it for blackmail and to damage my reputation. That changes the legal landscape entirely. She's not just unethical, she's a criminal. So what do we do?" I asked, a sliver of hope cutting through my rage. "Do we go to the police? To her company?" "No," Arthur said, a slow, dangerous smile touching his lips. "That's what she would expect. A messy private legal battle. We're not going to give her that. We are going to give her a public execution." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial murmur. "The Heart of the Rockies Gala is on Saturday. The CEO of Biogen, Richard Peterson, will be there. The hospital's entire board of directors will be there. The reporter she sent the tape to will be there, sniffing for a story. It is the perfect stage for a final act." He looked at me, his expression softening. "I don't just want you to be my guest, Carol. I need you to be my partner in this. I need you to walk into that room on my arm and shine so brightly that her darkness can't even touch you. We won't just defend ourselves. We will take back the narrative." A thrill sharp and electric shot through me. This wasn't about cowering in fear anymore. This was about retribution. This was about justice. The next day was a blur of activity. A discreet black car arrived at my house. A woman with a warm smile, an artist's eye, and an impeccable sense of style introduced herself as Margot, a personal stylist from a high-end boutique downtown. "Dr. Finch was very specific," she said with a knowing twinkle in her eye. "He said the theme was unforgettable." For the next several hours, my living room was transformed into a private couture salon. Margot and her two assistants wheeled in racks of breathtaking evening gowns in every color imaginable. It felt absurdly extravagant and yet deeply necessary. With each dress I tried on, I felt like I was shedding a layer of the old, invisible Carol. I was shedding the drab skin of the grieving widow, the accommodating mother, the overlooked grandmother. I was trying on new possibilities. In the middle of a fitting, as I was admiring a stunning emerald green gown in the mirror, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed. "Jessica." My stomach clenched. "Go on, answer it," Margot said quietly, sensing my hesitation. "Let her hear the confidence in your voice." I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello, Jessica." "Mother," she said, her voice a poisonous blend of condescension and fake concern. "I just wanted to call and check on you. I heard you're still planning on attending the gala on Saturday. That's very brave of you considering the circumstances." The unspoken threat hung in the air. "I have the tape. I can ruin you. But a friendly word of advice," she continued, her voice dripping with malice. "Be careful what you wear. At our age it's so easy to look desperate, like you're trying too hard to cling to your youth. You wouldn't want to embarrass Dr. Finch. Or yourself, would you?" She was trying to get inside my head, to plant seeds of doubt and insecurity, to make me feel old and foolish and inadequate before I even set foot in that ballroom. She wanted me to crumble. I looked at my reflection in the full-length mirror. I saw the lines around my eyes, the silver in my hair. But I also saw the strength in my posture. I saw the fire in my eyes. And I saw the magnificent gown that made me look not like a woman trying to be young, but like a woman who was gloriously, unapologetically her age. "Thank you for your concern, Jessica," I said, my voice as cold and smooth as polished steel. But I can assure you, I have no intention of embarrassing anyone. I've already chosen my dress. And I have a distinct feeling it's going to be a night that no one will ever forget. Especially you. I hung up the phone before she could utter another venomous word. The gauntlet had been thrown down. The battle lines were drawn. I looked at Margot, my heart pounding with a fierce, terrifying resolve. That one, I said, pointing to a stunning sapphire silk gown that seemed to absorb the light and radiate it back with an inner fire. It was the color of deep oceans and midnight skies. It was the color of power. That's the one. As Margot and her team packed up the other dresses, I felt a sense of calm clarity settle over me. For 20 long years I had navigated my family's treacherous emotional waters with one single goal: to keep the peace at any cost to myself. Now I was preparing for war. On Saturday night I wasn't just attending a party. I was walking into the arena. And this time I wasn't going in alone. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time. The woman staring back wasn't a victim anymore. She was a queen, and she was ready to watch a treacherous pawn get swept right off the board. The night of the gala arrived with a palpable sense of destiny. A nervous energy, a cocktail of fear and exhilarating anticipation, buzzed under my skin. When Arthur arrived at my door, looking impossibly dashing in a classic, perfectly tailored tuxedo, he took one look at me in the sapphire gown and his breath audibly caught in his throat. "Carol," he said, his voice a low, soft murmur of awe. "You are absolutely breathtaking." He took my hand, his thumb gently stroking my knuckles, and raised it to his lips. It was a gesture so wonderfully gallant and old-fashioned that it made my heart, my new and improved heart, do a little flip. "Are you ready for battle?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt, a wry smile playing on my lips. He smiled back, a confident, reassuring smile that calmed my nerves. "I'm ready to watch you claim your victory," he replied, his eyes holding mine with a look of profound respect and admiration. The ride to the Denver Symphony Hall was quiet, a shared, unspoken understanding passing between us. This was it. The air inside the Lincoln was thick with a shared purpose. When we pulled up, the entrance was a chaotic ballet of flashing cameras and valet drivers. I felt a momentary flicker of panic. I was a 67-year-old widow from the suburbs. What was I doing here? As if sensing my fear, Arthur squeezed my hand. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "And remember who you are." Walking into that grand foyer on his arm felt like stepping onto a movie set. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto a glittering sea of Denver's most powerful and influential people. The air hummed with a low buzz of conversation and the clinking of champagne flutes. Whispers followed us like a ripple in a pond as we moved through the room. I saw heads turn, saw people I recognized from the society pages of the Denver Post nudging each other, their eyes wide with curiosity. Who was this mysterious woman on the arm of the city's most respected and most reclusive cardiologist? Arthur guided me through the throng with an easy, confident grace, his hand a warm, protective presence at the small of my back. His expression was serene, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the room. He was a general surveying the battlefield. Our first objective was clear. We walked directly, with purpose, to the prominent table where Richard Peterson, the formidable CEO of Biogen, was holding court with a group of stern-faced men in tuxedos. He was the king of this chessboard. "Richard," Arthur said, his voice warm and familiar, clapping the powerful man on the shoulder. "Good to see you looking so well." Peterson's stern face broke into a genuine smile. "Arthur, I'm glad you could make it. I was beginning to think you'd become a hermit." His sharp, intelligent eyes then flicked to me, taking in my appearance with a swift, appreciative glance. "And who is this lovely lady you've brought out of hiding with you?" "Richard, I would be honored if you would meet my dear friend Carol Thompson," Arthur said, his introduction deliberate, emphasizing the words "dear friend." He was establishing our connection as personal, not professional, right from the start. I extended my hand, my heart pounding, and met the CEO's intense gaze directly. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Peterson," I said, my voice clear and even. "Arthur speaks very highly of your work in the community." We exchanged a few more pleasantries. It was a calculated, strategic move. We were establishing my legitimacy. I wasn't just some random woman. I was a person of significance in Arthur's life, And we were making sure the man who held Jessica's entire career in his powerful hands understood that. We were planting the seed of doubt about any narrative Jessica might try to spin. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw them. Jessica and Mark were making a beeline for our group. Jessica's face a painted mask of radiant professional charm. The shark was approaching the bait. This was it. The moment I had replayed in my mind 1,000 times. The scene from the very beginning of my story. "Mother! Dr. Finch!" she exclaimed, her voice bright and loud enough for Mr. Peterson to hear clearly. She positioned herself perfectly, a casual intrusion that was anything but. The ambush was on. And just as I told you before, Arthur delivered his lines with the precision of a surgeon. "I'm not here with family," he stated coolly, his arm sliding around my waist in a gesture that was both possessive and protective. "I'm here with my date." The shockwave was instantaneous and delicious. I watched Mr. Peterson's eyebrows shoot up, his expression shifting from polite interest to keen curiosity. I saw Jessica's smile freeze, the muscles in her jaw tightening. And that's when the news camera, as if on cue, swung in our direction. The little red recording light blinked on, a malevolent, wonderful eye. It was all happening exactly as we had hoped, exactly as we had planned. My line came next, the words I had practiced, the public declaration of my new reality. "Jessica, my personal life is not a business opportunity." The camera lens zoomed in, capturing the flicker of raw panic in her eyes before she could school her features back into a mask of composure. She was trapped. In front of her CEO, in front of her peers, in front of a news camera, she had been publicly and humiliatingly shut down. It was a devastating blow to her ego, her carefully constructed image, and her professional ambitions. She quickly tried to recover her footing, grabbing Mark's arm. "Well, we'll certainly let you two enjoy your date," she said, the word tasting like poison in her mouth. She shot me a look of pure, unadulterated venom before practically dragging my shell-shocked son away into the crowd. As they retreated, I saw her lean in and whisper furiously to Brenda, her accomplice who was lurking nearby. Brenda nodded grimly, her eyes darting nervously from me to the CEO's table. I knew this public humiliation was just the opening salvo. A woman like Jessica doesn't just accept defeat. She reloads. I watched her across the crowded, glittering room, saw the venomous look she shot in my direction. The main event, the move that would decide everything, was still to come. The trap had been set. Now we just had to wait for her to fatally walk right into it. Later in the evening, after the speeches and the auction, the orchestra began to play a soft, romantic waltz. The lights in the grand atrium dimmed, casting a golden glow over the swirling couples on the marble dance floor. Arthur turned to me, a playful, dangerous glint in his eye. "May I have this dance, my dear Carol?" he asked, extending his hand with a formal, elegant bow. He led me onto the floor, and as his strong arm went around my waist and my hand rested on his shoulder, the years of loneliness and sorrow seemed to melt away under the warm lights. We moved together with a surprising, easy grace, two people who had found a new, unexpected rhythm in the autumn of their lives. We didn't speak at first, simply swaying to the beautiful music, a silent island of calm in the swirling, glittering sea of Denver society. "Peterson is watching us from his table," Arthur murmured after a moment, his lips close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "So is Jessica. She's standing near the bar with Brenda, and she looks like she could spit nails. It's time, Carol. Are you ready?" "I'm ready," I whispered back, my heart pounding a steady, determined beat against my ribs. His steps were deliberate, masterful. He was not just dancing, he was maneuvering. He guided me in a graceful, sweeping arc across the marble floor, each turn and step bringing us closer and closer to the Biogen CEO's prominent table. We were a spectacle, I knew. The distinguished, reclusive surgeon and his mysterious, elegant date. Everyone was watching us. And that was exactly the point. As the final soaring notes of the waltz faded into the air, the room erupted in polite applause. We ended our dance just a few feet away from Richard Peterson's table. He stood up, a genuine smile on his face. "Arthur, that was magnificent. I haven't seen you dance like that in years. And Carol, you are as graceful as you are beautiful." "Thank you, Richard," Arthur said, keeping his hand warmly and possessively on the small of my back. He let the pleasantries hang in the air for a moment before deftly changing the tone. It's just a shame when a beautiful evening dedicated to healing the heart is tainted by such unprofessional and malicious conduct. The smile on Peterson's face tightened instantly. He was a man who did not like unpleasant surprises. What are you talking about, Arthur? What conduct? Arthur's voice was calm, conversational, but it carried the clear, sharp weight of authority. It was the voice of a surgeon in the operating room. A voice that commanded absolute attention. Richard, as the CEO of a major pharmaceutical company, I believe you would be very interested to know that one of your senior vice presidents, Jessica Thompson, has been engaging in some rather disturbing and frankly illegal behavior. A sudden hush fell over the nearby tables. People stopped their conversations, their champagne flutes frozen halfway to their lips. They were openly, shamelessly listening now. I saw Jessica, who had been standing with a group near the bar, freeze mid-sentence. The color drained from her face, leaving a ghastly pale mask of her former confidence. Peterson's eyes narrowed into dangerous, icy slits. He looked from Arthur to me, his gaze sharp and assessing, then across the room to where Jessica stood, paralyzed like a rabbit caught in the headlights. Get to the point, Arthur. What are you alleging? I'm not alleging anything, Richard. I'm stating facts, Arthur said smoothly, pulling out his phone. I'm alleging that your employee secretly recorded a private conversation with a vulnerable patient. This patient, Carol, who was recovering from major heart surgery. I'm alleging that she and her accomplice then maliciously edited that recording to create a false and defamatory narrative, accusing me of serious medical malpractice and professional misconduct. And I'm alleging that she then sent that doctored audio file in an anonymous email to my hospital's ethics board, to your direct competitor, and to a reporter at the Denver Post, in a deliberate attempt to destroy my career and blackmail her way into a professional relationship. Every word was a hammer blow. The silence in the room was now absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Every eye, every ounce of attention was now locked on Jessica. The predator had become the prey, trapped in the center of a glittering, hostile arena. Richard Peterson took a slow, deliberate step towards her, his face a thundercloud of pure, unadulterated fury. The public funeral for her career was about to begin. Mrs. Thompson, he said, his voice a low, menacing growl that cut through the silence. You will be in my office, first thing Monday morning, and you will bring your lawyer. He turned to walk away, the judgment passed, the sentence delivered. Jessica looked like she was about to faint, her whole body trembling. But just as the dramatic scene seemed to reach its shattering climax, a young, clear, and unexpectedly strong voice cut through the tense atmosphere. Wait. I'm sorry, but there's more you need to know. Everyone turned. Standing there, just a few feet away, her simple cocktail dress a stark contrast to the surrounding glitter. Her cell phone held up in her hand like a torch of truth, was my granddaughter. My brave, wonderful Chloe. Chloe stood there, poised on the edge of the dance floor, looking impossibly young and terribly brave. The entire room, a collection of some of the most powerful people in Denver, was staring at her. Jessica let out a strangled gasp, her eyes widening in a new kind of horror. The horror of a parent seeing their own child turn against them. Chloe, what in God's name are you doing here? You are supposed to be at home, she hissed, her voice a sharp, panicked whisper. I took an Uber, Chloe said, her voice clear and strong, resonating with a moral clarity that shamed every adult in the room. She wasn't speaking to her mother. Her gaze was fixed, with unwavering intensity, on the formidable CEO of Biogen. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Peterson, but I couldn't let her get away with it. I heard my mother on the phone earlier this week. She was in her home office talking to my dad. Mark, my son, who had been hovering near the edge of the crowd like a guilty ghost, flinched as if he'd been struck. He looked like he wanted the marble floor to open up and swallow him whole. She was laughing, Chloe continued, her young face set with a grim determination that both broke my heart and filled it with a fierce, burning pride. She was laughing and bragging to my dad about how she had finally found a way to handle the Carol problem. That's what she called my grandma. A problem to be handled. A collective, shocked gasp rippled through the onlookers. The sheer, naked cruelty of the words, spoken by a child about her own grandmother, was breathtaking. She said. Chloe's voice trembled for the first time, but she pushed on, her loyalty to me overriding her fear. And I remember the exact words because they made me feel sick. she said. That old woman is a sentimental burden, Mark. Her only value to us now is the connection to Finch. If she won't leverage it for us, then she's just in the way. Chloe, that is enough, Jessica shrieked, the mask of composure completely shattered, revealing the snarling, desperate creature beneath. She lunged for her daughter, her hands like claws, but Arthur moved with the swift, silent grace of a surgeon, placing himself squarely between them. He didn't touch her. He didn't have to. His presence was a solid, immovable wall. No, it's not enough, Chloe cried, her eyes now welling with hot, angry tears, but she never took her gaze off the CO's face. She told my dad that if her plan to ruin Dr. Finch worked, Grandma would be so heartbroken and alone that she would come crawling back to them, because she'd have no one else left. She said it was the perfect way to secure my college fund and get her promotion at the same time. The mention of the college fund, her own daughter's future, being wielded as a justification for such emotional terrorism was the final unforgivable sin. It was a level of monstrousness that even this jaded, powerful crowd could not ignore. And I have proof, Chloe said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, but it carried in the dead silence of the room. Because when I heard her say those disgusting things about the grandma who has loved me and taken care of me my whole life, I recorded it. She pressed a button on her phone. And then Jessica's own voice, cold, calculating, and dripping with contempt, filled the stunned silence of the grand atrium. It was a recording of a phone call, clear as day. Honestly, Mark, it's a brilliant plan. It's flawless. Finch's reputation goes down in flames, the old woman comes running back under our control where she belongs, and I finally get the leverage I need with Peterson to get that senior VP promotion. It's a win-win. She's lived her life, for God's sake. It's our time now. The recording clicked off. The silence that followed was absolute, profound. It was the silence of a public execution. No one moved. No one breathed. The only sound in that vast, glittering room was the quiet, choked sob that finally escaped my son's lips. Mark stumbled forward, his handsome face streaked with tears of shame and regret. He didn't even look at his wife. His eyes, filled with an agony I hadn't seen since he was a little boy who had broken his arm, were fixed only on me. Mom, he choked out, grabbing my hand. His felt cold and clammy, trembling uncontrollably. Mom, I am so sorry. I was a coward. I was weak. I let this happen. I'm so sorry. I looked at my son, truly looked at him, and for the first time in years I saw not the arrogant, successful lawyer, but the lost little boy he used to be, the boy who used to think I was the strongest person in the world. And then I looked at Jessica. Her face was a grotesque mask of pure hatred and utter defeat. In the space of 10 minutes she had lost everything. Her career was over. Her marriage was over. Her daughter's love and respect were gone forever. All of it a spectacular, self-inflicted implosion. I squeezed my son's trembling hand. The road ahead for him, for all of us, was going to be long and fraught with pain. It would be a messy landscape of lawyers, a bitter divorce, and a custody battle over my grandson Tyler. But in that moment, as two security guards discreetly but firmly escorted a shell-shocked Jessica towards the exit, I felt a profound, cleansing sense of justice. The war was over. And I had won. The aftermath of the gala was as swift and brutal as a surgical incision. Jessica was fired from Biogen before the end of business on Monday. Richard Peterson, it turned out, did not tolerate scandals, especially not ones that played out on the local news. The story of the Biogen VP fired after gala showdown became a piece of Denver corporate lore, a cautionary tale about ambition curdling into monstrosity. Her career wasn't just over, it was incinerated. As predicted, she and Mark began divorce proceedings. It was an ugly, bitter affair, the kind that makes lawyers rich. They fought over the house I had helped buy, the assets I had helped them accumulate, and most painfully, the custody of their son, my grandson Tyler. Chloe, my brave, wonderful granddaughter, refused to be a pawn in their war. She packed a bag the day after the gala and officially moved in with me. Her presence was a light in my quiet house, her youthful energy and unwavering loyalty a daily balm to my soul. Mark, to his credit, began the painful work of trying to put his life back together. He started seeing a therapist, a step I knew was monumental for a man who had always equated vulnerability with weakness. He called me every week, the conversation stilted and awkward at first, filled with long silences and choked-up apologies. He was trying to understand how he had let himself become a passive accomplice to his wife's cruelty, how he had lost his own moral compass. It was a slow, agonizing process of rebuilding, and I didn't know if our relationship would ever be what it once was. But he was trying. For the first time in a long time, he was genuinely trying. And amidst the smoldering wreckage of my old family life, a new and beautiful one was quietly, steadily blooming. My relationship with Arthur deepened with each passing day. The drama was over. The grand gestures and public showdowns were behind us. What remained was something far more precious. A quiet, comfortable, and deeply joyful intimacy. We fell into a lovely rhythm. Our evenings were spent not in fancy restaurants, but in my small, cozy kitchen, our hands brushing as we chopped vegetables for a simple salad. He taught me how to make his mother's famous lasagna, and I taught him the secret to my late husband's perfect apple pie. We took long, slow Sunday drives up into the Rocky Mountains, the crisp Colorado air feeling like a clean slate. We'd walk along gentle, sun-dappled trails, him always mindful of my healing heart, his hand always finding its way into mine as if it belonged there. We talked for hours endlessly. We shared stories of our late spouses, not with sadness, but with a gentle, loving nostalgia. We talked about our children. His a successful architect building sustainable homes in developing countries, mine a broken man trying to find his way back. We talked about our regrets, our fears, and the dreams we thought had long since expired. With Arthur, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be the strong, stoic matriarch. I could be vulnerable. I could be tired. I could be just Carol. He made me feel seen, cherished, and utterly safe in a way I hadn't felt since Thomas was alive. He wasn't replacing the love I had lost. He was showing me that my heart had the capacity for a new and different kind of love, one I never thought I'd be blessed enough to find in the autumn of my life. One evening about a month after the gala, the air was starting to get that cool, crisp edge of fall. We were sitting on my back porch swing, a soft blanket tucked around our legs, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery shades of orange and pink. He had his arm around me, and my head was resting comfortably on his shoulder. Felt so simple, so natural, so perfectly right. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said softly, his voice a low, comforting rumble against my ear. "Oh dear," I teased gently. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing for your patients?" He chuckled, a warm, rich sound. "I hope it's a very good thing for this particular patient." He shifted slightly, turning to look at me, his blue eyes serious and full of a profound tenderness. "Carol, these past few months, I feel like I've woken up from a long sleep. You've brought so much light and laughter back into my life, at a time when I thought it would just be shades of gray forever." My heart did a little flip, a flutter that had nothing to do with my medical condition. "You've done the same for me, Arthur. More than you know. I know this is all still new," he continued, his thumb gently caressing my shoulder. "And I know there's a lot of healing still to do with your family, but I need to be honest about what I'm feeling. I am falling deeply and irrevocably in love with you, Carol Thompson." The words, spoken so simply, so sincerely, took my breath away. They were words I never ever expected to hear again. "Oh, Arthur," I whispered, hot, happy tears springing to my eyes. "I am falling in love with you too." He smiled then, a beautiful, radiant smile of pure joy that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He leaned in and kissed me, a long, tender, and deeply passionate kiss filled with all the promise of a future I had never dared to hope for. When he finally pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine, our breath mingling in the cool evening air. "Good," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "because in that case I have an idea. It's a little crazy and it's a very big step, but I need you to just hear me out." I looked into his hopeful, loving eyes, my own heart full to bursting, wondering what this magnificent man had in store for our unexpected, wonderful life together. "What if we took the worst thing that ever happened to you?" Arthur began, his voice filled with a quiet, building passion that made my heart beat faster. "And we transformed it? What if we used it to build something beautiful and lasting?" I looked at him, my brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Your story, Carol," he explained, his hands enveloping mine, his grip warm and strong. "The experience you had. Being discharged from a hospital after a terrifying surgery, only to be left alone at an airport. feeling vulnerable, scared, and completely abandoned. It's a waking nightmare. And you know what the truly tragic part is? It happens every single day. All across this country, elderly patients, people who don't have a strong support system or whose families are distant or uncaring, are sent home to face their recovery alone. He leaned in, his gaze intense and full of purpose. They're discharged into a vacuum. There's no one to pick them up from the hospital. No one to make sure there's healthy food in their refrigerator. No one to help them sort their medications or just sit with them for an hour so they don't feel so terribly alone. The medical system saves their lives, and then the social system lets them fall through the cracks. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle between us. What if we started a foundation, Carol? You and I together. We could call it the Thompson-Finch Foundation for Patient Advocacy. We could use our resources, my medical connections, my financial stability, and your incredible, powerful story, to build a network of dedicated volunteers. We could create a service that provides everything those patients need. Safe transportation from the hospital, a delivery of nutritious meals for the first week home, and most importantly, a recovery companion program. A volunteer who visits, provides companionship, and helps them navigate the confusing first days of being home. He looked at me, his eyes shining with the passion of his vision. We could turn your pain, your abandonment, into a lifeline for hundreds, maybe thousands of other people. We could ensure that no one else ever has to feel as alone as you did. I stared at him, completely speechless. The idea was so simple, so elegant, and so profoundly beautiful that it brought a lump to my throat. For decades, my purpose had been defined by my relationship to others. I was Thomas's wife, Mark's mother, Chloe and Tyler's grandmother. My entire life had been about supporting their dreams, their needs, their ambitions. The idea of creating something that was uniquely mine. A legacy born not from my service to my family, but from my own pain, my own resilience, and my own strength, was overwhelming in the best possible way. It felt like the final piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. Arthur, I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears of pure, unadulterated joy. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said simply, his voice gentle but firm. Say you'll build this with me, Carol. Be my partner in this. And so I did. I said yes. The next 6 months were the most challenging, exhausting, and exhilarating of my entire life. We filed the endless paperwork to become a registered nonprofit. We met with skeptical hospital administrators and convinced them of our vision. We recruited our first class of volunteers, a wonderful group of retirees, students, and kind-hearted people who wanted to make a difference. We held our first fundraiser, a small affair in Arthur's beautiful backyard, and raised more than we ever dreamed possible. We poured our hearts, our time, and our shared passion into building our foundation from the ground up. I was no longer just Carol Thompson, the widow, the abandoned mother. I was Carol Thompson, co-founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization. I was a woman with a vital, life-changing mission. Today was the official press conference to launch our foundation. I stood at a podium that had been set up in the main atrium of Denver General Hospital, the very place where Arthur had his office, the place where our new story had truly begun. The room was packed with local news reporters, doctors in their white coats, hospital board members, and our first group of volunteers wearing their new foundation t-shirts. Arthur stood proudly beside me, his hand resting on the small of my back, a silent, steady source of support. In the front row I saw my granddaughter Chloe, her phone held up high, recording everything, her eyes shining with pride. Next to her sat my son Mark. Our relationship was still a work in progress, a landscape of difficult conversations and ongoing therapy sessions for him, but he was trying. He was showing up. Today he was here, and that meant the world. I took a deep breath, looked out at the sea of expectant faces, and began to speak. My name is Carol Thompson, I said, my voice clear and strong, resonating through the hushed atrium. 1 year ago, I was a patient recovering from life-saving heart surgery. I was left stranded and alone at an airport by the people I loved most in the world. In that moment I felt broken, I felt invisible, and I felt utterly worthless. I paused, letting the stark honesty of the words sink in. That experience was, without a doubt, the most painful of my life. But it also taught me the most important lesson I have ever learned. Your value is not, and can never be, determined by how other people treat you. It is determined by how you choose to stand up for yourself after you have been knocked down. I turned and smiled at Arthur, my partner, my love, my co-conspirator in this beautiful new life. My heart swelled with a love so deep and powerful it felt infinite. My heart was broken, I concluded, turning back to the crowd. But in the end it was also broken open. Open to new possibilities, open to a new and unexpected love, and open to a new and vital purpose. Today we officially launched the Thompson Finch Foundation to ensure that no one in our community ever has to feel as alone as I did. We will be the hand to hold. We will be the safe ride home. We will be the warm meal waiting. We will be the living proof that even after the darkest, loneliest night, a new bright dawn is always possible. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't an easy one to share, but I truly hope it serves as a powerful reminder that your worth is inherent, and it is never, ever too late to take back your power and rewrite your own narrative. If you or someone you know has ever had to find strength in the face of family betrayal, please share your experience in the comments below. Let's create a community where we can support and lift each other up. And if my story touched your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe for more stories of hope and resilience.